time for you to talk about the book that you have planned for us this week.
Yes, so I'm talking about this book in a very timely manner. I wanted to talk about it earlier. It was, I believe, issue 12 was supposed to come out ahead of the theatrical release. And that book that I'm talking about is Dune: House of Atreides. So the plan originally was, because I get yelled at, from other members of the DSG about, you got to do it in a timely manner.
Oh my God.
It's got to be relevant. I tried. The fucking printing presses, wouldn't let me.
Yep.
But I've been dying to talk about this book because you're right. Boom, when they're adapting things, whether it's TV shows or, they do a really, really good job, with it. And so Dune: House of Atreides from Boom Studios, written by Brian Herbert, who is the son of Frank Herbert, who is the author of the original novel Dune.
Ooh.
And Kevin J. Anderson, who's sort of his writing partner. They've written a lot of Dune books in general, spin-offs, prequels, sequels, that sort of stuff. And artist is Dev Pramanik. Colors is Alex Guillemers. I butchered that.
No, you got it.
Letters is Ed Dukeshire. And this has been an absolute stunning. Here we go, kiddo. All right, hold on, I'm distracted.
Oh, look at this.
This has been, I shouldn't say something, it's been an absolute fantastic read. So let me read the synopsis real quick, and then we'll dive into it. So Dune: House of Atreides transports readers to the far future on the desert planet Arrakis, where Pardo Kine seeks its secrets. Meanwhile, a violent coup is planned by the son of Emperor Elrond. An 8-year-old slave, Duncan Idaho, seeks to escape his cruel masters, and a young man named Leto Atreides begins his fateful journey. So this is a 12-issue series, and when I started reading this, I had not read the original Dune novel. And so when reading this the first time through, or at least the first 10 issues, because by then I had read the book, I wouldn't say that I felt lost. It was very engaging, very engrossing story, but I definitely felt like these are characters I should know. And I felt like, okay, there's stuff here that I'm not getting, but that's okay. It didn't take away from the book because the comic was still telling a really good story.
Okay.
And so this is a prequel series to the original novel. And, what this book does is it taps into what makes Dune such a great book and movie. And that is, not just the characters, but sort of the politics and the chess playing that goes on. And you see that it's very well evident in this book. I mean, I've said it before on the show, George R.R. Martin, he basically just took Dune and took it from being a sci-fi thing that happens on other worlds, and just made it sort of in that fantasy, sort of medieval motif. It's the same thing. You've got your different houses. They're all going for political. I mean, it's a tale as old as time.
I don't know if I can stand for you talking about my fellow Northwestern alumni like this anymore, because he's,
George R.R. Martin?
Yeah, cut from the same cloth, him and I.
Fuck that dumbass. You should have finished the fucking books, and maybe we'd had a better goddamn ending to what was a stellar series.
Yep.
Holy shit.
Yeah, stellar show. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It was definitely frustrating. But anyways.
So, it's very political, but what makes this, series so great is that it is a prequel. You are getting origin stories to a lot of the characters that you know from either the book, or if you've never read the book, watch the movie. And so once I had read the book and then I was able to have an even greater appreciation for this series, because now the Bene Gesserit makes more sense. Some of the things that take place between the Bene Gesserit and the Harkins now makes more sense, and it all comes to fruition in the book and in the movie. Some of the stuff which we haven't even seen, because Dune the movie we've just seen part 1. So some of the stuff that is fleshed out in this series will undoubtedly play out in part 2 of Dune. And so every character that that focuses on the book is compelling and intriguing. So each issue you'll get a few pages here on, a young Duncan, Idaho. You'll get a few pages here on
Oh,
the
okay.
Bene Gesserit. You'll get, this story involving Leto Atreides, who in this series is about the age that Paul is in the movie, right? So we get
Got
a
it.
young Leto Atreides who is Paul's father. And, you get, some stuff on the Harkin. And so it all comes together, and it's just this big political chess match. And it really does set up the events that takes place, in Dune. And I think it helps that the writer is, the son of the original author. And so he knows the source material very well. And, the art was great. And so,
Well, before
if,
you go on your next
yeah,
point, you mentioned a little bit, but I just want to make sure I get a clear picture on this. You mentioned how you think that if someone hasn't, like, so for me, I haven't,
yeah,
I'm interested in this because I know you liked it a lot, but I also know you read the book, and I know it's kind of hard when you know all that information, but I don't intend on reading the book. I might
but you saw
read
the
this,
movie.
but I saw the movie. Am I going to be fine?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you might have to, IMDb some of the characters' names just to like put a face, the
Hmm.
actor's face to the character's name.
Got it.
But
Right,
some of the
because there are
characters,
different points in life. Yeah. Okay.
right, exactly, and be, okay, gotcha. Right, my like little minor things like obviously, because the book is more dense, and there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more information that you get because that was my one beef with the movie. The movie was stunning. It was a great movie both from a storytelling standpoint and from a visual standpoint. But and this is just that age old thing where it's like, oh yeah, the book was better than the movie. Well, yeah, because you can make a book as long as you want. You can put it in as much detail as you want. Whereas a movie, like you gotta make cuts and you gotta make some changes to make it fit within a certain time frame. So like a lot of the stuff that I thought made the book so special was the political intrigue, the
Hmm.
conspiracy, the chess match, that was going on, where a lot of that was just glossed over into the movie because they had to pace it in such a way,
So much
right?
stuff in that movie already. Yeah, it's
Which,
unreal.
unlike Sweet Tooth, not to go back to that, but
Oh boy.
like
Oh,
Dune kept the tone and
having
kept the
flashbacks.
spirit of the book right true,
Mhm.
whereas Sweet Tooth just completely said no, we're doing a 180 here. So
Completely different.
but the comic does a really great job at keeping that same tone, keeping, those characters are true to, who they are to become. And if you love the movie and you want to know more about the Dune world, this is a great place to start. It's 12 issues, right?
Mm.
And you get a lot of that background. There's still a lot of stuff that happens in the book that you don't have in the movie, which if you read the book, oh yes, oh that is fantastic. That really,
Mm.
but again, it's okay. You love the movie, you saw the movie, you love the movie, read this book, you'll have a better appreciation for not just the movie, but you're going to read this book. Oh, this whole world is tremendous. And
Mhm.
so some of the characters that, the comic focuses on, the big one being Leto Atreides.
Mhm.
He's played by Oscar Isaac, in the movie. So in the book, it's, he's a teenager. I think he's about 15, and his dad Paulus, sends him off to a different world, Planet Nine, to study them. He's to become Duke one day, so he's now prepping him to, see the galaxy, see other planets, develop political friendships, right? And the moral leader that you get in Dune, the movie, and into the book, is born from this comic book. So you sort of see how that character becomes a character that he is to
Huh.
become later on,
Okay.
and his story throughout, like really ends up being something. It's just fantastic, and like the way that the last issue ends, with what Leto had to go through and what happens with the House Atreides and how he cements himself is really great stuff. So that was one of the main storylines going on. The other character is Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, who in the movie, this is actually the one thing I did not like about the movie. He's got like this Doc Ock thing going on, right? Where he's like this, weird, almost kind of robotic, like alien figure in the movie. And in the comic and in the book, he's just a man. He's a very, very powerful, conniving man, right?
Mm.
But he's obviously much younger. in this, and he's very calculated. He's a very good chess player. The Harkonnens are the Lannisters. That's the best way. Like that's who the Harkonnens are, right? They're the
Okay.
Lannisters, and so where the Lannisters were always 2-3 steps ahead, the Harkonnens are always 2-3 steps ahead. And they're very much in control of Arrakis and the spice trade. But they're also up to so much more. There's some legal stuff going on with spice that they're up to, and the ramifications that has throughout this series, and then where they end up. In the beginning of Dune, where the Harkonnens are on the way out, and the Atreides are in. Like this sets that all up, and so like I said, this is a great place to start.
Okay.
The Bene Gesserit, which. Again, the movie didn't go into great detail about the Bene Gesserit and who they are and what they're capable of doing fully. You get that a little bit more fleshed out in this. It's definitely way more fleshed out in the book. But the Reverend Mother Mohiam, who was the old woman who had Paul stick
with the box, yeah.
Yep. So she's in this, and so the Bene Gesserit are obsessed with birthing I'm going to mispronounce this, the Kwisatz Haderach, which is a messiah of sorts. It's a being that is able to see all futures. And that's sort of what, Dune, the movie, was leading up to with Paul Atreides, and his, training from Lady Jessica, and, what you'll get in part 2, that's all set up here. They're also playing this chess game where they're taking a look, because they're able to see all futures. They finally map out, what gene pool, what genetics they need to do to plant the seed, pun intended, to get to where they need to get this, get this person, this Kwisatz Haderach on their side, so they can really be the supreme, rulers of everything. So this is all this great intrigue, in this book and in this story. Dune is a fascinating world. It's a fascinating story. Two other characters I want to hit real quick. The Duncan Idaho origin is awesome.
Okay,
awesome,
nice.
Because he's a kid. Again, he's about the same age as Leto is in this, but he's he's a slave. He's being hunted for sport. He's held captive, and you get the origin of not just his badassness and where he learned to become such a great fighter, but also his close relation to the Atreides, right, and all that. So that was great. And then lastly, Pardo Kynes. So in Dune the movie, you're introduced to Liet Kynes. She was the planetologist there, and so in the book it's actually a male. They just made her a daughter, but in this comic, it's her father, Pardo Kynes, who's hired by Emperor Elrond to explore Arrakis to learn more about spice. And because he gets sent there as a planetologist, he's just, not only is he obsessed about just learning about different worlds, but he becomes obsessed with the Fremens. And this is where that Kynes-Fremen relationship begins, because he really, he saves the life of a Fremen. He gets, brought in. And so, like, there's just all this stuff, Nick. Like, if you love the book, if you love the movie, this is a comic you're going to want to read, because you get a lot of great information. Again, the intrigue, the action, the storytelling. This is just one of those worlds. It's like I said, it's a Star Wars universe. It's a Game of Thrones universe. It's this huge, massive thing where there's so much room for so much great storytelling, and this is a hell of a place to kick off with.
So you talk about how, you talk about Star Wars, we're talking about these vast worlds. And of course, we are guilty as anybody of like trying to take in a lot of Star Wars content, and as much as some of it can be frustrating. But with Dune, I saw this, and knowing very little about Dune, before the movie, I was like, okay, like, is this really something people are going to care about? So knowing you've been as high on it as you have been throughout, and we're talking about these characters as kids, not necessarily something I'm going to care about as much. But hearing like the way you felt about it the whole way through, I've been like just dying for you to talk about this on the show, so I can just go and read it whenever I damn well please. So I'm all in on this book. The thing I wanted to ask you, well, first of all, I get the impression that this is not something we'll ever see on the big screen, but do you think it's interesting enough that we could see it like in the small screen.
100%. This would
Okay.
make a tremendous series.
Okay.
Again, because you can expand on it even, right? Like
Mhm.
the story you get from issue 1 to issue 12 and all the different, chess pieces that happen. Like this would make like a great first season. And
Right.
then you could
Sounds like it could be.
and then like from there you could make, you could just develop more, as you go along. And so like I was saying before, like reading this is only going to enhance what you already know of the world, of the characters, that you have already been introduced to, whether you've read the book or watched the movie. And as I said also earlier, like that, whereas the Harkonnens are the Lannisters, right?
Mhm.
I mean, the Jedi are the Bene Gesserit, right? Like, it's
Mm.
that same thing, that mind control thing, kind of thing, like you being able to
It's
use the
amazing
Force,
marriage. Game
right?
of Thrones and Star Wars, it's an amazing marriage. That's what we're
Yeah,
getting.
I mean, you can obviously tell because I mean, Herbert wrote this thing a long time ago, like well
Amazing.
before, right? Any of those things. So you get why Lucas and Martin would borrow, I use
Mhm.
the term loosely, from that book, because it's a fascinating world. It's a great story to be there. And like I said, like I think Boom, they put out a one shot on the Sardaukar, which
Mm.
we learned a little bit about in the movie. They've got another one shot coming out, and I think they have another series
That's what I was
planned
gonna
as
ask
well.
you. Is
So
there something else? Because it sounds like they could. It's just a matter of where. But I mean, the fact that they did so well in this series leads me to believe that whatever the next one is that they do is going to be is promising at least.
you could do a series on the Fremen, on just the Fremen and their history and their lore and their time on Arrakis and all that. Like, you could do a book just on the Bene Gesserit. I mean, there's so much content that you could, pull from here and make. It would be great stuff. Very
Awesome.
welcomed. Yeah.
That's good to hear that like you can do more in the world of comics too, and I would love to see them just keep pushing it there because you've already got the novel and everything. Like this is
Well,
you're gonna reach a
novels.
different
There's like
novel.
6
Right?
or 7 of them, right? I think
My
comics
apologies.
is probably the best way to go because you can tell a story like in a 12 issue arc that's going to
Mhm.
be satisfying and not so dense, because those novels are some thick bitches.
Right, and if you're gonna go and do a show like we're talking about with this, and you want to do other spin-off shows or like one series that's just a bunch of spin-offs, then doing it in the world of comics and kind of testing it there and seeing how the success of it, like then you can either learn and do make mistake or learn from your mistakes there, or just kind of abandon it altogether and not do a show if you don't necessarily want to. But like that's we're seeing that a ton with comics. Like everything gets optioned for shows and movies and whatever. So like that is it's a great testing ground for these studios. And speaking of stuff that's been optioned for shows and movies, I'm going to move over to my book now, Joe, if that's okay, unless you have anything else on Dune House of Atreides.
I give you permission to move on, Nicholas.
Thank you very much.